Hey guys, welcome to a very special episode of the Hoops Lounge. Today, joined by my partner, Mr. Mike Grumberg.
It is I.
You know him from hoopslounge.com and his Technical Tuesdays. Finally getting on the camera and giving the people.
It's been a long time, I've got to tell you. I tried to make myself pretty for months. It's been a failure.
Pure gorgeous. So today we're talking about a little recap of the NBA draft and where players landed and their fits on those teams. So to quickly kick it off, we got to start with one of my favorite teams that did well in the draft, the Orlando Magic. When you look at them, they picked Aaron Gordon at the fourth pick, which a lot of people were like, is that a bit high for him? But then they got Elfrid Payton in a trade with the 76ers for Saric. And now you look at a team who went from a terrible team, and I think they'll still be pretty bad this year, but one of the best potentially defensive teams in the league. When you look at Aaron Gordon, when you look at Oladipo, when you look at Payton, when you look at guys, a few of their wing guys going on there, and their big man, Vucevic, you have a team that can contend, although they can't shoot.
Can you define contend?
Contend in the East, considering if LeBron James leaves, the Miami Heat will just plummet.
Talking about contend for a playoff spot?
I think at this point in their development, yes.
Okay.
And although they lost their best player, Aflalo, which kind of hurt them, but they got Fournier, who I actually like. But anyways, we're talking about draft, so I think this is a good thing. Anytime you can pull two starters.
Two starters, strong defense in the NBA.
Exactly. So who was one of your favorites?
Actually, because you went with a two-pick, I'm going with a two-pick as well. I really, really, really like what the Hornets managed to do, okay?
Michael Jordan did something right?
Well, I guess we actually have to give him credit. First of all, yeah, they took Vonleh, and people are saying, yeah, but they had Cody Zeller, and they have Big Al. However, you know what? Down the road, this is a good pickup for them. He can stretch the court. He can block. He can do all the things. He's athletic. People are saying you remind him of a young Chris Bosh. I mean, that's a great pickup next to Big Al and also next to Cody Zeller going forward. I thought that was a great move. Then they snagged Napier only to move him for Hairston, who is a bona fide scorer. This man can fill it up. And you know what? No disrespect to Gerald Henderson, but
he's gone.
Hey, you know what? They signed him. They keep him. He gives them some offense, but he's not going to really get it done long-term for a contending team. And maybe Harrelson has a little bit more potential. He's a bigger body. You know what? He's a good guy to have. And so I really, really like what the Hornets did. They went, they addressed needs, they improved, and they didn't really mess with any of their key pieces.
Oh, it makes sense. And Cody Zeller, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, worst case, he's a big man off the bench who can stretch the floor.
For another couple of years, and then when Big Al's gone, well, you got that young
and even not, if you need to make a trade, stretch fours are what's in demand right now, right? So it could be a piece that
the fact that 10 teams apparently have contacted Josh McRoberts tells you stretch fours are important in today's NBA.
Or just banging on people.
Is that going to lead into your 76ers?
My 76ers, so they're another team. I kind of alluded to them with the Saric and Elfrid Payton trade. So pulling, in my opinion, the best player in the draft, Joel Embiid, and potentially the best European player in Dario Saric. Saric won't be ready for at least 1 or 2 years, and if we look at how they dealt with Nerlens Noel last year, Embiid, I doubt, plays a single game this whole season.
I'm kind of hoping to see him after the All-Star break, maybe sometime.
I think they're going to protect their investment, especially considering they want Noel to get minutes and touches, and although it's interesting because you want Noel to get those minutes, but if he's going to play with Embiid, he's going to have to play some power forward.
Absolutely.
And he's definitely going to have to play center on this team right now. Well, there's not all this choice, right?
That's true.
But when it comes to all those players on Philadelphia, I mean, it's a young team, and you know what? I think Hinkie, the GM, is doing a great job. He's building long term, and so when you look like 3-4 years down the road, assuming they can keep them and they develop, it's a big if. But you have to swing for the fences in the NBA sometimes. You could have a block party front court of Noel and Embiid, which could be one of the best front courts in the league.
Are you talking about shot blocking the 76ers?
Shot blocking the 76ers.
You know I'm excited about this because for me the best 76er pickup was KJ McDaniels in the second round. Now I know that he is not a shooting guard. At 6'6", 195, you figure he's got the size for it. 6'11" wingspan, 3 blocks a game in college.
Boss.
This guy is all about defense. And picturing him, Noel, and Embiid together in a front line with Carter Williams in the backcourt, that just screams out destructive. You want to talk about Orlando's defense, why don't we talk about the 76ers' potential in the future?
That makes sense. It also calls for a really clogged lane. There's not a whole lot of shooters on that team, let's be honest about this. But at the same point, shooters can be had. You know, we've seen like Jody Meeks can be had for like $5-6 million a year. Like all they'd be missing is a player like that. So in terms of ranking drafts for future prospects and not taking shortcuts on the building process, I think the 76ers did well.
76ers did really, really well. I think the fan base will be upset. But a team that isn't going to be upset at all are the Spurs. Now, they didn't dip into that second round. Their 30th overall pick, Kyle Anderson. My God, the new Boris Diaw. I think Diaw is going to stay in San Antonio.
From UCLA.
But when you can have a 6'9" forward that handles the ball, that passes the ball, that can kind of shoot it, that distributes, does a little bit of rebound, does a little bit, does a little bit of everything.
Well for his position.
He rebounds pretty well. He's not an elite athlete. We know that, but neither is Boris Diaw, although quick feet show something in the NBA. Whether or not he's going to be able to defend at a high level, either the 3 or the 4, it's yet to be seen, but in the Spurs' offensive scheme, having a distributor and playmaker in the front court is huge. I thought the Clippers probably should have gone that route, because when you're starting either Matt Barnes or whoever else they're playing, you kind of look and said, well, you guys do have the potential for front court development there. They didn't take him. DeAndre Jordan could have covered him up, but you know what? Their error is the Spurs' gain, and I'm really happy that San Antonio continues to infuse
and he's a pure
young
system
talent.
guy, so
System
I mean,
all the way.
I mean, it's kind of the best fit for a unique talent like Patton.
Speaking of unique talents, my favorite player in this draft, Marcus Smart. Now, don't get me wrong, wherever Marcus Smart goes, I'm happy for him. I think he's a really high character guy. I know there were questions with that whole incident with the fan, but it's not fair to him. I think that's just a small part of the story. Let's not judge him only on that. Let's see the bigger picture. But what I don't understand are the Celtics taking him. Does this clear the way for moving Rajon Rondo?
Well, I think it has to, especially considering we went over in our last Off the Wire with them signing Avery Bradley back. So now it's pretty crowded backcourt, and unless you're wanting Rondo to develop these guys. But if I'm Rondo, I'm seeing the writing on the wall, and I'm seeing I'm out of there, because there's a lot of young players. They're not contending. I mean, maybe they land Kevin Love, who knows? But I think Rondo's on his way out, and I think they landed him to secure that.
I think so. And the other thing that really worries me is now you're going to have 3 supposedly big-minute backcourt players, none of whom are known for their shooting. And in the NBA, if you don't have any perimeter scoring, you don't have any perimeter shooting, you're in trouble, and usually you get that from your guard spots.
Well, it's funny, right? Because we spoke about the block party possibly in Philly. This could be Brick City.
This would be Brick City.
This is Brick City from
Detroit,
that backcourt.
You're off the hook now. We've got a new one, and it's in Beantown.
Actually, that's funny because all their best shooters are their big men.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Hey, let Olynyk line it up and just start draining them.
It's the modern NBA. Next, I'm looking at the Utah Jazz and how they got Dante Exum at the 5th pick. It was a slide for him. He was supposed to go.
I was
top
really
4.
surprised he made it past the Magic.
Well, because that Aaron Gordon pick threw everything off. Everyone thought Magic needed a point guard. They want someone with Oladipo with a little bit more of a scoring touch, a little bit more shooting. I thought Dante Exum made perfect sense. I mean, at the end of the day, I like what the Magic did. I think Alfred Payton has a lot of potential. And I think they're set up well, but this is just to the Jazz benefit. They really wanted Jabari Parker the whole time. But Dante Exum with Trey Burke, as soon as he came in, Trey Burke was tweeting that I really want you on this team. I think they can play together. I think Exum's a better 2 than 1 anyways.
You know what, I'll be honest, when you see the 6'6" point guard come out or a 6'5" point guard, a lot of the times, yeah, they can play point, but in the NBA they can also play 2. And just because you have someone that knows how to distribute at the shooting guard spot doesn't make them a bad player. It makes them an asset.
Well, if you have 2 strong ball handlers, but that's only about security. And if they can retain Gordon Hayward, that's 3 strong backcourt players with Favors, and if they decide to stick with Cantor, although I'm hearing that they're thinking Cantor and Favors is a little slow.
Yeah,
I want to fix that up.
They might need to do some more
but I think that's a fantastic fit. And a guy from Australia who hasn't played in the collegiate system, not used to all the pressure. And he going to a smaller town, I feel, is going to help this.
He can also develop, right? A lot of talk about him, and he's going to develop into the NBA. And because they've drafted him, and because now he's going to play 1, he's going to play 2, if they're going to have this kind of whole combo backcourt thing going, that helps because it takes a little bit of all handling pressure off of him, takes a little bit of the distribution and playmaking off him. Although he can still assume that role when he needs to, he can also try and further refine his scoring game, exploit his athletic ability, and it also lets them hide the harder defensive assignment. Right, because they can always have him take that and leave Burke with the easier pickup.
Well, to finish with the Jazz, I'm gonna leave you with this. If you've watched a bit of Exum, is his potential comparable to Wiggins? Because I think it is.
I think they're really different players.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, he's got a really high ceiling, absolutely. But again, you know, when you draft players on potential, sometimes they don't pan out.
They don't,
especially if they're 6'9" power forwards from LSU.
Crying. But at the same point, it's another city. It's not like Utah is the prime destination for the LeBron Jameses of the world. So you have to take these chances.
Absolutely,
right?
they have to roll the dice on this one. This was a really, really good move for the Jazz.
And speaking of rolling the dice, you have no choice with this next team.
Minnesota Timberwolves and Zach LaVine. You gotta take him, right? Crazy athlete. Does he play the 1? Does he play the 2? Can
He's
he
got a nice shot
shooting?
too. I like it.
Yeah. He gives you all of that, and it's kind of going all in for the Timberwolves. Sure, they drafted Shabazz Muhammad last year. That did not work out for them.
It didn't even work before summer camp.
That's right. It was just an utter and complete failure. That doesn't mean that he can't turn it around. But in the meantime, the T-Wolves said, you know what? Let's just double down. Let's go for another risky pick. But a lot of people have started to compare Zach to Russell Westbrook.
Which is not a terrible comparison, by the way.
No, except we know that Zach shoots the ball better.
He does, and I've seen he has a quick release. He has good handle. He's played some point guard, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, next to Ricky Rubio, he's a great compliment because those two can get out in transition. You finally have somebody to knock down shots next to Rubio. It's going to be entertaining. At a bare minimum, the T-Wolves brought in some life, vitality, and entertainment because if they lose Kevin Love, they got to find a way to sell tickets anyway.
Well, I was thinking, if that Golden State trade went through with Klay Thompson, he gets the no pressure, becomes the first guard off the bench. When you're starting Rubio and Thompson, having LaVine as the #1 guy off the bench to play either guard position, I think that's nice.
Absolutely, and if you're matching up with teams that go a little bit smaller, you can play all 3 of them, and that just becomes really scary. Of course, defense is still an issue, right? Defense remains an issue.
And that's a nice foundation because everyone's worried about the Timberwolves losing Love. Would you have that foundation to grow and go forward?
It gives them the piece. Now, when we talk about growing and moving forward and looking for fit, the last team we want to talk about, they did not do any of that.
No, the last team, sorry, fellow Canadians, but these are the Sacramento Kings and Nick Stauskas.
It's not against him.
No, it's not against him. I think he's a good player. I just think it's a terrible fit. I really want Sacramento to be good. I like Kevin Johnson. I love Boogie Cousins. I even really like Jason Thompson. I've always been a big fan of his. Rudy Gay, not so much.
How about Ben McLemore?
I think. Well, this is terrible news for Ben McLemore. I kind of liked him. It was a good story, but I think he needs to. His development's going to be stunted. I mean, this is a terrible situation. Like they have to move him now. Because if you don't, he's stuck on the bench, and I think someone like that really needs.
So Stauskas then is ahead of him on the depth chart in your mind?
I would say yes, because of his ball handling ability. Because their point guard situation is not sure. Like, how did you pass on Elfrid Payton right there? Because to me, they had Payton really high on their charts, and you needed a point guard. You had a 2-guard. To me, understand talent over fit. But I don't know if I see Stauskas over Payton. I think Stauskas has a few NBA-ready skills. Like, he's the best shooter in the draft. His ball handling's better than most people give him credit for.
He's got good size.
He can create his own shot. So he's not just a spot-up shooter, but at the same point, is a team that has Rudy Gay, Isaiah Thomas if he comes back, Ben McLemore, and Boogie Cousins really looking for just ball hogs who can just shoot. I mean, yes, he'll be able to pass. Yes, he'll do this. But I think if your team has that, you need defense. And I think Elfrid Payton next to Ben McLemore going forward, because Ben McLemore, his skill is shooting.
Yeah.
So I think while it's a good talent, I think it's a missed opportunity for Sacramento, and they're going to overpay for some point guard, unless
they keep Thomas.
Although it's funny because we alluded to the Celtics in the past, and there's been talks about Rondo to Sacramento potentially. Could Stauskas be part of that to Boston?
That would be a fantastic development because the Celtics need shooting, as we already talked about, and the Kings need a little bit of veteran leadership.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have to add a little bit more into that in terms of money, but they have a few guys like Thompson there they can toss in. So, I don't know. I mean, aside from that, there was the NBA drafting the player there who was having a crippling disease, unfortunately, with the large heart. So that was a good moment. But was there any one moment outside, any one pick outside of this that really stood out to you? If we're just looking up and down the draft at the last second.
If I look up and down the draft, really, the pick that stood out to me was Houston. They went with Clint Capella, and I thought that was an interesting pick because that's kind of a draft and stash guy. You want that, and he's defensive. Some even want to compare him to Ibaka, although he say he's not as far along in his development. And I thought, well, this is an interesting thing because this team is really needing to start thinking about winning now. They need to win now. And so what do? They take a power forward that's not going to contribute, that doesn't bring anything new to the roster.
And they can stash him so he's not against the cap, right?
They can stash him so he's not against the cap, and they hope to bring him in, I guess, as Dwight Howard starts to be on the other side of 30. Is that their plan?
I think they're hoping to bring him in once they sign all these free agents, because what they're doing right now is just holding cap space, right? Like that's why they haven't signed Chandler Parsons yet.
It perplexed me as a pick, but I thought, you know what? Why not? Yeah. I'm not going to doubt Daryl Morey. He seems to get the better of most deals he takes part in, so good for him.
Yeah, and last one for me, I thought the Tyler Ennis one, just give a little Canadian love after I gave a Canadian bashing, was a good one. I think in Phoenix, it's a good situation. He'll get to learn. Although I'm not sold that Bledsoe makes it to next year. I think there's a good chance that Bledsoe is on another team.
Big money Bledsoe. I would throw a lot of money. I would throw more money at him going forward than Kyle Lowry. I'm a little worried about his...
If you're the Toronto Raptors, would you not just throw all that same money at Bledsoe?
I would
or Reggie Jackson.
Well, Reggie Jackson's not a free agent this offseason, right?
No, but they can keep that money.
They can keep that money. But the Raptor fan base would be really upset if you didn't bring in Lowry and you didn't have a replacement.
But they brought in the 2 Brazilians.
They brought in the Brazilians.
So for Tyler Ennis, it's a good chance to learn under some established point guards there. It's a good system. I don't know if he stays there long term. Although if Bledsoe's out, Dragic plays a little better off ball. So as a 2, and then having Ennis run that team could make sense. And I think the Canadian comparisons never stop, right? This is how Steve Nash started as a 3rd-string point guard in Phoenix and built up. So I think
Nash was not known for his defense.
No, he was not. And I think it's funny. A lot of people talk about Andrew Wiggins and how he's going to be compared to LeBron James and such. I think Tyler Ennis and Steve Nash are going to have that bid for the first couple of years. He's always going to be compared, like, unless he just falls on his face and can't do it. But I think there's going to be that comparison. But yeah, all in all, good draft. Do you think this was one of the deeper drafts, or do you think this is kind of like there's going to be a handful of stars?
You know, it's hard to say because a lot of the time in the draft you have to look 3, 4, 5 years later and you realize guys that were picked in the teens and 20s have become meaningful role players, starters, other guys have fallen off the map. And so it's hard for me to say, but I look at it and I say, there are a good 10 to 15 players in that first round that you can easily imagine meaningfully contributing to NBA teams. So I think it's a pretty deep draft. I think everyone thought that, this is going to be the best draft since LeBron James. That might not be the case because of all the players with the really high ceilings, we're still years away from really seeing what they might be capable of. And we know that not all of them are going to pan out. So Andrew Wiggins, please don't pull an Anthony Bennett.
I don't think he will, although there's enough Canadians there that he could be eating some Canadian bacon, putting on that weight and being LeBron-esque. All right, guys. Well, this is our draft recap with Mr. Mike and myself, Sporting Phil. We'll catch you guys next time in the lounge.
Easy.